Hey guys, it's me, EODGamer here, and we're back with another build guide video on Honkai Star Rail. And I listened to you guys in terms of the poll that we had a while back. You guys said you wanted to see DanHeng as my main, and here he is. This is my main character for Honkai Star Rail, and I'm clearing most of my content with him as the main carry. Now I'm gonna share with you first in terms of my build. And in terms of the light cone, some of you might realize this is the Cruising in the Stellar Sea. This is a 5-star light cone that you can actually get from the Herta shop. I've already done like a shop guide in another video I've posted, so you guys can check it out if you're interested on the channel. I'll link it out in the video card description above as well. Why this is good is 5-star stats. So for example, if I just switch from these 4-star stats, right, you can see that this is already like a 10% increase in the attack while also giving him a good amount of defense on the side. If you don't have this, or maybe you haven't cleared World 4 yet, I was using this only Silence Remain for the longest time. And if you don't have this as well, I think that another good one to have is Arrows, because this is a character that really likes a crit rate. The more crit he has, he's able to slow the enemy more effectively as well, and it allows him to be more potent as a damage dealer. You will actually start seeing quite a lot of crit numbers for him pretty early on as well, and he can do like quite big amounts of instance of damage with his ultimate because it gets enhanced if you hit a slow target. So these three I think are my favorite options so far. And for those of you who are using arrows now but you don't have only Silence Remain, out of the 3 other purple light cones, I think the best definitely is subscribe for more, and you guys should subscribe for more as well. And the reason why this is better is because it increases the damage of like basic attack and skill by 24%. And when you have, although it's like when you have max energy you have more, usually he will only just need this first part. The reason why this is better is because this is more conditional, because once you get damage it loses the effect, as well as in terms of once you switch target, this is also dispelled. So this definitely is subscribe for more is definitely more priority over the other two, but I would definitely choose only Silence Remains as like my top choice because of crit rate. And Cruising in the Stellar Sea, this is a free to play 5-star light code. Anyone can get it as long as you have cleared some stages in the Herta simulation universe as well. So that's for light cones in terms of my thought process. And in terms of traces, like what I'm exactly building in terms of traces, you want to go for all 4 of the central trace because he scales very well with damage. So this one is normal attacking damage, this one is wind pen increase. It's also very effective, especially when you play with Esta, you also can get the wind pen buff. So those are good. This is also very strong. It's his ultimate ability which does tremendous amount of damage, and it increases when the opponents are slowed. That's why you want him more for crit as well. And last but not least, of course, this is his skill which also does quite a lot of damage already on its own. This skill is also like multi-instance hit, so you get the more higher chance of slowing the enemy, especially if you don't have like 100% crit rate. Very, very useful. Level all 4 of them effectively. And in terms of like his other traces that you see here, you want to get all those that have attributed to damage as soon as you can. And you see here, this is like wind damage, this is like attack damage, the sword here. And the only one that you have no choice but to do is like this defense 7.5, because by unlocking this, you actually get access to the peripherals later on, which is like the damage bonus one. As you can see here, I'm actually waiting off before I actually farm for this one. I don't really care too much about this reduced aggro, since generally I'm running like him with team-wide AoE reduction in terms of shielding as well as healing. So I don't mind him taking a bit of damage. But if you are running, for example, the light cone that requires you to not take damage, you might want some reduced aggro in his kit as well. Generally, he is quite squishy at times too. So the rest of them are pretty much the same. The rest of them are pretty good in terms of like the major traces, like this one faster than light, good amounts of self speed buff as well, although it's like a side chance only, but it's still good to be able to have the option of increasing his own speed. And of course this one basic attack deals more damage to slow enemy. This means that he becomes more viable as like to gain skill points for the rest of the team, making him transition better into a utility like a sub DPS later on, and a boss controller type unit when you have like Zealer or Yanqing to do a lot of damage. So those are like my thoughts in terms of his traces. And before we go into Relics and Eidolons, do like and subscribe if you are finding value in this video so far. It will really motivate me to create more content for you guys as well. And now let's talk first about Eidolons, and then we'll go into Relics. And in terms of Eidolon 1, when his target is like a percentage of greater than 50%, his crit rate is increasing. This is quite effective when you're fighting against bosses that you're trying to slow early on as well. But later on, of course, you lose this 12% as the bosses HP, which are usually quite a lot. Once it's below 50%, you lose that 12% crit rate. This is an issue generally because anything theoretically above 88% crit rate will be over capping on crit since you lose it from this one. That's just like like something to note, but overall still pretty good for a free 12% crit rate generally. Reduced talent cooldown on 1 turn, I think this is a really strong ability. As you know, he gets Wind Pen when he has that when he gets a buff and stuff like that, so it's really solid to have this talent cooldown for 1 turn, which means that he only needs 1 turn cooldown to use it. Normally it's like 2 turns, and that's quite a bit long, as some of you might have already felt. Next, DanHeng uses an ultimate defeats an energy action advance by 100%. This makes you want to like use his ultimate on squishies a bit more rather than the bosses. I think it's okay so far, but generally if you're fighting squishies, you probably won't get that multiplier from using his ultimate, because they likely won't be slowed, as his slow might be able to kill off squishies already on its own. Just something to consider, not like super fantastic. And last but not least, we have E6. The slow state triggered by skill reduces the speed by enemy extra 8%. This is a very solid Eidolon, and probably his best Eidolon out of all of them. I will choose like 6 and 2 as his top 2. The reason why this is very good is not only because it's a solid extra slow, but if you think about it, as you progress the game longer and longer, and you have more characters on your account, DanHeng as a DPS starts to drop off very quickly, because 5-star characters have much higher stat scaling as well. And when he has an increased like speed down, it makes him more versatile and to be used as like a boss controller, just slowing the enemy bosses later on, and while also dealing like some good sub DPS potential. It transitions him nicer into that kind of role, which makes him more relevant in the game as well. So I like this in terms of the devs actually put it in at E6 to make him still relevant in the late game. Very nice addition. And of course, let's talk about Relics. There are many ways to build him. I will be talking about the other alternatives as well. But for me, right now, in terms of the early game, I'm building him with a Musketeer of Wild Wheat, because we all get this very often from opening chests, and it's also a reward, and you can also pick this up from like the shop with the Hertarium coins as well in the Herta space station. So with this 4-piece effect, it gives very nice amounts of attack which he requires, a good amounts of speed increase 6%, and also basic attack increase, which he uses every single part. So very efficient to put on your main DPS early on. If you are not running this Musketeer of Wild Wheat, I think the other option that we can choose, if for example those of you who are farming or like spending some energy to get this set, this is the other alternative later on. I don't recommend us farm early on before we unlock the end game gear, but for those of you who want to know in advance, this is a pretty good set for DanHeng as well. Increases wind damage, and when he uses his ultimate, it advances attack as well. And once he has a good amount of uptime on his burst, and he does tend to have his burst up quite often, this is a very good proxy for a very huge speed increase for himself as well, especially if you're playing him more as a damage dealer too. So those two sets basically are like my go-to sets. Of course, Musketeer of Wild Wheat is much more efficient. And now let's talk real quick in terms of like these the 2-piece set that I'm using as well. The 2-piece set is Space Sealing Station. You get this from the simulated universe after you unlock Relics, probably around like Trailblaze 25 to 26 level, if I remember correctly. Good amounts of 12% attack, especially if you pair it with like a wind set later on. And when your speed reaches 120, which he tends to do because of his self-speed buff from his trace that he will unlock later on over here. With that, you can easily activate this effect on its own, not relying on a speed buffer on S-star, and you can even run like an attack boot also, and that works fine as well, to give him an extra 12% attack as well. So in terms of main stats, or in terms of substats, what I'm looking for is I'm looking for anything to do with crit rate, crit damage, as well as attack, more offensive stats. Why crit damage? If you notice like my other videos that I'm talking about, crit damage is hardly mentioned, but for DanHeng is an exception, because he generally has a very high access to crit rate early on, so he will be doing quite a lot of crit damage already. So this is a character you can actually invest both in crit rate and crit damage together with attack if you can find the perfect combination as well in terms of the substats. Speed is very nice to have in the substat, but that 1-2 speed in terms of losing out on the percentage multiplier of attack, I don't find it super valuable in the near term. At the end game, definitely finding those perfect substats will matter quite a lot more. I generally have a team composition that is willing to take damage, so I do want him to have a bit more HP as well. But if you are, for example, reducing the aggro on him, then he might not be taking that much damage as well, and you can maybe leave this on to level this up slightly later on. Unfortunately, I wrote quite a lot in defensive stats, otherwise a more offensive one would have been. I'm just looking for really the main stat as of now in the early game. And let's talk about main stats, the exciting part. So in terms of the cloak, crit rate by far number 1. I don't think there's much option unless you are running an attack percentage. That's like the only alternative if you can't find maybe a crit rate piece. A Musketeer of Wildweed with a good amounts of crit rate, and thankfully it rolled a little bit in crit damage, but the other stats are kinda meh in my opinion. So in terms of the boots, I was lucky to find a speed boot for DanHeng, so the very solid 16% with a nice amounts of crit damage and attack already, so it's pretty decent. Of course, crit rate will be also very I would like that quite a bit more, but in general you can run attack percentage here or speed depending on whether you are running Esta in your team. If you run Esta, speed is not as important, but he certainly does like to move quite often, especially if you think about the buffs you get in Simulated Universe for the hunt. You want your characters to move much more quicker, and that is why I'm choosing to opt with speed gear on majority of my characters as well. Esta based teams generally like quite a lot of speed. And okay, so the last two in terms of these two planetary spear, I'm taking wind damage bonus. For those of you who can't find like a wind damage bonus yet, it's fine to just take attack percentage first. You do want these extra free stats, especially if you're not having too much in terms of your relic amounts already. For example, if like you don't have enough EXP to level your relics anyway, you might as well just focus on the substats and just run an attack rather than some other main stat as well. The substats, the passive is really like free stats, so why not just take it? And some of you might be quick to notice, why do I have 5-star gear and I'm not even like Trailblaze 40 yet? And I've already done a video in terms of the Simulated Universe. You can get it from the Simulated Universe, and I explain more in that video already. So do take a look. It's on the channel, and I'll link it in the video card or like the comments below and stuff like that. So do check it out. And last but not least, we have in terms of the Herta's Wandering Track, the Link Rope. I'm running an attack percentage. There, you could run break if you really wanted to, but I really don't like break effect. I prefer attack because I want him to do big damage, and this definitely helps out quite a lot. As you can see here, I'm looking for crit rate, speed. This is nice to have, and I'll definitely be looking for more offensive stats as well. And thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, you probably will find these two other videos quite helpful as well. And I've already done other build guides on the channel for some characters, so do check it out if you're interested. Leave a comment below if you want me to make any one of your characters as well. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.